What is quacking, everybody? Has been over a week now since I left Sandusky, Ohio. Riptide 2025 was a week ago, and oh boy, was it a lit and fun time. I hope everyone's enjoying their post-land depression just nicely with a nice scoop of ice cream and aggressively messaging your friends on Discord because you miss them so much. In this video, I'm be covering everything that I experienced, all the funs that I had, and even playing throughout the entire tournament. So let's get right into it. I showed up on Tuesday night at 8:30ish. My flight landed early, and everyone who was going to be picking me up, I was like, oh, I'm early, and I was going to awkwardly sit in the airport and wait until 9 to be like, hey guys, I landed. But sure enough, they were all ready to pick me up early, so I was like, okay, that's cool, whatever, come pick me up. So they picked me up, we got pizza, and we went to the Kalahari, showing up around 10ish, and wind down and went to bed for the first night. Wednesday, we had the whole resort to ourselves. It was nice and relaxing. No loud Smash players, no people coming around disrupting anything, just enjoying the resort as it should be enjoyed. And if you have the funds and the money and the time and, you know, all that good stuff that you need, I would definitely recommend coming on a Tuesday or Wednesday and just showing up early so you have that extra time and extra day to just really enjoy the resort to yourself and kind of just give yourself a vacation. Because I know a lot of us, we show up on some people show up on Thursday or Friday for the tournament and they're just there for the event. But next time, next year, if you're going, try and make it a vacation for yourself. Really show up like a day or two early and just relax and enjoy yourself. So it was a nice chill Wednesday, had some Pancake House, that place is delicious, went to Target, got some necessities, and just hung out with my friends and had a good time, and we got lit. It was just a nice, lit, fun time. Now, each year I've gone to Riptide, there's been this sort of mantra that I had for each year. I haven't really stated in my previous two videos, I just talked about the trip, but this year there was a new mantra. The first year I went back in 2023, the mantra was don't be a wimp. I lived my life to its fullest at Riptide 2023, didn't do well at all in Splatoon, but I had the fun time with all of my friends. It was such a blast. And then Riptide 2024 was proveth thyself. I really wanted to hunker down and win in Riptide 2024. I wanted to get top 32, and I just fell short of that, getting 33rd last year at Riptide 2024. This year's Riptide was we die lit. And that is what happened. We just got very lit. Honestly, every day we got lit. I didn't get super lit towards the end because I almost died lit. I'll get into that a little bit later. But we were lit for the majority of the time. So Thursday rolls around and still hanging out with my friends. And this is another reason why I love getting there early, is because I get to just wait for all of my friends. I just get so giddy because all of my friends are showing up. I have my main group there because we get there early, but on Thursday, that's when a lot of people show up. So I love getting messages on Discord oh, hey, I'm at the resort, and going up to people and getting to see them again after not being able to see them for a year. And it's just such a nice, warm feeling that I really can't describe. It's just something you have to experience for yourself. I just love chilling out in the lobby and just walking around the resort, talking to my friends, walking them to their rooms and stuff like that. And then, badge pickup as well. That was always a treat. I got there super early. I didn't know there was a PSA thing that they were doing this year where I was I wanted to walk around and see all the, the stuff they were setting up. And there was a person, they're yo guys, only staff members allowed back here, blah, blah, blah. And I'm oh, oopsie, my bad. But we waited in line and we got there a little bit early. So I was right there at the front. And I don't know if I'm just, unk now, if I'm just that old. I'm on TikTok, I do, TikTok things or whatever, but I'm missing out on some memes. I don't know what 6-7 is. It's been explained to me a little bit. It's a song or something. I don't know what it is, but I'm standing in line waiting for my badge, and all I hear is like these young Smash players in front of me, like 6'7", 6. I don't know what that means, and I'm like, man, this is really annoying that they're just yelling 6'7" while I'm just waiting in line, just trying to have nice conversations with my friends. So that was that, I guess. And, you know, if someone wants to explain 6'7" to me, please do. Feel free to just spam the comment section with 6'7" as well. If you just want to, you know, be that person, go ahead. So I get my badge, and then I just go have fun with my friends. I did forget to mention, however, on Wednesday night, I got to play some modded Smash, and that was very fun. Modded Smash Ultimate is so funny and goofy, especially when you're lit and you're just having a good time with modded Smash, playing random characters. That was fun. I highly recommend it. If you have a modded Switch that can handle some Smash mods, recommend the Chaos mod. That is very fun. But other than that, just hung out Thursday night, met up with everybody who showed up, and it was just such a nice, fun time. It's always that Thursday night is just so fun and good, just seeing all your friends. Like I said, if you have a chance to come to Riptide, if you've never been, you see all your friends going, come to Riptide next year. It's just so fun, and just the energy and feelings, just everything about it is so fun. I highly recommend it. Just save up and just focus on getting your butt to Riptide, because it is just an insane experience that you can't get anywhere else. So Friday rolls around and it's time for pools. I had my pools so late because Luckyo, one of my teammates, came in, you know, a little bit later, and they weren't sure if they would make it in time for earlier pools. So we had pools very late at 8 o'clock, and it ran late, so we didn't start until like 8:39ish anyways. But we got out there at a reasonable time after pools. But, you know, our pools were later, so all of my other friends had pools. And instead of focusing just on myself this video, I will be focusing on more of my friends' teams as well, focusing on 3 of my friends' teams. I had many more friends who were playing at this tournament, but I'm just going to only focus on 3 of my friends that came in with their teams this year. So I had my good friend Kay along with Deska, Carrot, and Kaito playing early in the morning, and their team was Mazdas and a Moose. I had my good baby boy Locke playing with Latios, Ace, and Hawken. I had my good helpful friend Ezio, my good friend Soda playing with Brendan and Little Chew. And then on my team was me, the Duck, Glitch Cactus, the amazing streamer, Luckyo, the Mario Kart World Champion, and the disciple of Ori. So on paper, we were a very stacked roster for my team, but I didn't get to meet everybody until like later, like kind of like an hour or 2 before our sets is when we finally met up. I think we might have maybe all met up just like a little bit earlier, but we all didn't really like congregate together as a group until like an hour or 2 before our sets, which is kind of funny. And previously before this, I was a very last minute addition to the team as they needed a support player. And I was like, yep, I can play, because originally I was not planning on playing this Riptide due to some work related issues where they really didn't want me to come, and they were like really anal about me taking more time off, because I already took time off to go to the UK earlier this year, even though last year I took 80 hours off as well. I took time for Riptide off, and then I took like a staycation. Basically, my fiance came to visit me for that. But outside of that, like, I was just really annoyed with work. And by the time I got the okay, it was very close to Riptide. And I really didn't want to, like, last minute spring on to a team and just kind of be disappointed or whatever. Or just, like, you know, I also had self-doubts, like, maybe I'm not good enough. And there was just a whole mishmash of all of that. So I was like, you know what? I can play on this team. Sure, why not? I got asked, and I was like, sure, I'll hop on this team. So I did end up playing at this year's Riptide. So let's dive into day 1 pools. Unfortunately, not everyone was streamed, so some of the background gameplay you'll see is just regular gameplay of either me, my team playing, or just whatever Splatoon footage I have, because obviously not everyone was streamed. So up first was my good friend Kay's team, Mazdas and a Moose, and they got to wake up bright and early for their first sets of pools, and game 1, set 1, they had to play against FT Win. Now, they did forewarn me that if I stood on the side of FT Win, that I would be banned from the hotel room, so I couldn't be getting lit with them. So I made the tough decision to stand behind FT Win because I'm a real fan. I'm a real champ. I will vote with my voice, and I stood behind FT Win. You think I'm going to stand behind my other friends? No, I'm going to stand behind FT Win because they're going to win. It's in the name. So I stood behind FT Win. I took some videos of that. I'll show them here. And of course, as expected, FT Win took it over my friend's team 0-3. They just absolutely wiped them. However, moving on to round number 2, my friend's team took it 3-0 against Off Meta is Beta. And, you know, that was cool. They took a game off, but then they had a wonderful Game 5 set. This set determined either they were going into redemption or the other team was going into redemption. And at first, you know, they won a game, but then the other team was up 2-1. It was knock knock pickup line. That was the team they were going up against. And they were down a game. And it was looking not so good. However, they made the proper adjustments for what they needed, and they ended up coming back 3-2, securing themselves redemption. And there's, again, always something about the atmosphere of intense competition. I could see, you know, you see the players' emotions. When you watch just a regular stream of casters and playing, you don't get to see the emotions of the players in online tournaments. But when you're in person, you can see the stress, the intensity, and I felt the other team's pain because, you know, that was just, you know, they just didn't make it and they were very upset. And like, you can see that, you can just feel the competition and intensity. It's just like an aura that you can't really feel anywhere else unless you go to a LAN. So after my good friend Kay's team secured their redemption bracket, it was time for Ezio and Soda's team. They took it 3-1 over Tetris Effect.
Anyway, is already back in business. That's 2 members down. No bubble, no crab. Also still up there trying to do what they can to stop this tower, but Brendan on the flank getting one. That will possibly be the way to that 3rd checkpoint with the wall as well, and they wipe out for Tetris Effect. Dead weight are doing what they can. That's the last checkpoint, and they are cruising. Roll out the red carpet, because that is it. And once again, shout out to Soda for...
They ended up losing to Go. It's G-O with an exclamation point. That's why I yelled it. They ended up losing to Go 1-3, but they ended up beating Fast 3-0, or F-A-S-T, because it's capital dot, capital dot, capital dot. But they took a 3-0, and Ezio and Soda's team, called Deadweight, secured themselves into redemption as well with a 2-1 record. Next was my baby boy Locks team. Their first round, they took it 3-0 against Krill Streak. They ended up losing 0-3 against Pokey Fish. And then they went up against another group of my friends, the Remixers, 3-0, securing themselves a redemption bracket slot as well. Now, besides Kay's team, everyone had a pretty handle, you know, good on straight 3-0 just, or 3-1 right into, you know, redemption. And I was like, you know what? My friends did it. I'm feeling pretty good. So I group up with my team a little late into the night. I also had a nap earlier so I could be well rested, and I put my game face on. I went from smiling to not smiling at so much. So our round 1 was, you know, I would like to say it was good or it was just bad. It was an intense game 5. We fought against Milk Shaking It, and we traded games back and forth. And I remember one of the games, one of my opponents, their like Joy-Cons died or whatever. So they were screaming like, "My Joy-Cons died! My Joy-Cons died!" And I believe they ended up winning that game anyways, because they already had like a pretty decent lead, I think. But they ended up, you know, winning that game, and it was just a very intense set. and we ended up losing our first set against them 2-3. It was a very close zones game. We were at 13 points, but we just couldn't get the zones back, and they ended up taking the lead and closing the game out on us. And that was a very rough start to pools, unfortunately. However, we were on stage for the next set, and I would like to say we bounced back. We did in ways, but this was again another intense game 5 set where we were put on the IPL stage, and we took a game, but then we ended up in a down a game scenario. They were up 2-1 against us. And this is where we really had to reflect and, make adjustments on the fly mid-set. It was just a Hail Mary that we needed to make to try and, secure our win so we could go on to redemption bracket at least. So we switched up the comp. Originally, our comp was me on Zap, Cactus on Shatter Splash, Luckyo on 96 Gal Deco, and on Sea Blast. However, we switched up the comp drastically where Luckyo ended up switching to Cooler, I switched to Pro, Cactus still stayed on Shot, and switched to S-Blast. And we ended up taking a game, bringing ourselves to a game 5. The game that brought us to a game 5, it was on Clams, and we managed to score, and Cactus ended up throwing in a clam in overtime because we had the overtime clock ticking, but the basket was open, and Cactus ended up jumping on their plat and scoring the clam to secure us a game 5.
One goes down. There's the Booyah Bomb. The power clam comes out. They've got enough to take the lead with 11 seconds left to go. 3 go down for Leviathans. It's only autumnal up for now, just trying to hold on, but there's plenty of clams into the basket here right now for Flurry Roll. Finally, they'll get taken down, and there'll be a pity clam on the map, but do they? Never mind. Another one gets thrown in.
Where we went on to game 5, and this game 5 was intense. We ended up getting lead, and we were holding strong the whole time. And then it got very, very close towards the end as they rode the tower to the final checkpoint on Ship Shape, but Luckyo got an insane triple kill, and we killed their last person and got an entire team wipe. And this was right before overtime, and we just rode that tower to victory.
Simsom is firing the Zuka down towards the enemy spawn. So much space is bought for the Leviathans right now, but 3, everyone goes down on top of the tower, and Flurry Roll secures it at the very end.
Securing ourselves the win over the set, so we were 1-1 in our pools. And I was like, no more game 5, guys, no more game 5s. My heart could not take it. It was so stressful, and I was like, oh my, it was just so stressful. But all of my friends were in the crowd cheering for us, and it was just such a nice thing, just seeing all my friends out there cheering, and it was good. But then we move on to round 3, and this was fine. We were locked in, we were ready, and we took it 3-0 over USF Green, which is a team that I saw back in Gatorland in February. However, I did not get to play against them, but I did see them back at Gatorland. But we took it 3-0 over USF Green, securing ourselves redemption bracket after the most back and forth heart-aching sets and just kind of all over the place, but we locked in and we did it.
Slowly being funneled in. It seems like 3 members of USF Green right now, and they are 10 missiled here as well. So they are first to move to the side right here, and then called out here once again. The pro is going absolutely insane, getting those picks right now. Just 3 more clams to be able to get it. Luckyo coming in from the top, being able to score that in. Wow.
So after securing our redemption bracket, it was time to go get lit once again because we die lit. Went to my friend's room, we got lit, and I was like, I'm tired, I'm gonna go to bed. Turns out I got a little bit too lit, just a little bit, and I got to do a little funny don't look awkward walk back to my room across the resort, and I miraculously made it back to my room, and Amber's there brushing her teeth, and I'm like, hey, I got too lit. I don't feel good. So I got to sit next to a trash can the entire night while my stomach did not feel good. I did not throw up, however, because I'm a champ like that, but I did not get that lit for the rest of the entirety of Riptide. I just got lit in my normal, usual, I'm going to have fun with my shenanigans type way. But that was day one of Riptide, just a very roller coaster of emotions. Next, I wake up very tired for day two. Woke up early, had some breakfast with some friends. We went to, I believe it was the Hispanic restaurant or whatever in the corner. They had an all-you-can-eat buffet. And don't eat the breakfast buffet. It's very mid. I didn't, but some of my friends did. It was very mid. I definitely recommend ordering off the menu, especially the French toast. I got the s'mores French toast. That thing slapped. They put marshmallow fluff. They got chocolate chips and chocolate drizzle on it. It was so good. Definitely recommend that. But went into the convention room. And, you know, just kind of hanging out, you know, talking to people, whatever. Got some merchandise and stuff like that. But I was trying to, you know, psych myself up for day two because this was it. This is where I just fight for top 32 and, you know, we just go hard. So, you know, I ended up taking a nap and coming back later. But my other friends, they had their sets earlier. Everyone else had their sets at 4. I had my sets at 6, but I believe they were also running late this day, so I think I had my sets around 7-ish. So at that point, you know, just going to support my friends. I had a nap. I was well and ready to go, juiced up, and, you know, there to support my friends and everybody else. So starting with Ezio and Soda's team, they went 3-1 against Golden Barrows, and then they went 3-0 against Non-Specific Office Store, and then 3-0 against Bossa Nova. They absolutely swept their entire redemption bracket. No issues. They're securing themselves a top 32 placement, just cruising through that redemption bracket.
For a push later on, clearing them out now is going to be very difficult. They do use their GG strength pretty early, but they still do have potentially a Zuka in that whale to get them back in here, and it's just that pencil, and now they're just going to dive in on it. There they go. Dead weight taking that set 3-0, and just, man.
Then Kay and Locke's team were in the same redemption bracket, and Kay's team unfortunately fell on the winner's side, knocking into losers brackets. They went 0-3 against Worm Regards. They tried their best, but they just really couldn't muster up what they needed to take the games off of Worm Regards, and falling into losers brackets.
Coming to fruition here with 3 members down.
It is, and that Stamper combining with this Inkjet really forcing that head it back. Now, that's huge. A pick there with 12 seconds left, Staff. That's got to be devastating. They have to really rush this zone right now if they want a chance of taking it. And, of course, they're watching all those drops. And that's going to be Warm Regards taking that 3-0 sweep here.
And then afterwards, Locke's team, they ended up going 2-3 against Bearcat Cowboys. And they also fell into losers bracket, and there was an extra losers round 1, so they had to play more games compared to Kay's team, who ended up in the losers round 2 side, or I think it was like losers semis. Bearcat Cowboys, however, ended up getting knocked into losers bracket, and they ended up going up against Kay's team, and this is where Kay's team, they tried their hardest, they fought their best, but they ended up going 2-3 against Bearcat Cowboys, getting knocked out of the tournament at 39th. And I was like, you know, I was supportive, I was there, but I was like, damn, all right, I got to clutch up, you know, I got to be the one to bring glory to our group. And, you know, Locke has a chance as well, you know, so we're cheering for Locke, and I'm like, all right, it's going to be tough competition for sure for my sets, but going to Locke's sets and losers round 1, they took it 3-2 against Adamins, and then they beat the team that knocked Kay's team into losers, Warm Regards, 3-0, and then they got their run back on top of avenging Kay's team 3-1 against Bearcat Cowboys, securing themselves top 32 placements from the losers side. Then it was my turn. I was determined for this top 32. I wanted this so bad. I was so close last year. It was just aggravating. So round one, we go up against a group who is friends with Cactus, Hype, Moments, and Aura. And these games were nail biters. These games were so close. However, we ended up losing all 3 games against Hype, Moments, and Aura, going 0-3. But these games were so close. When I say they were close, they were close. There was a tower game where we got it down to 53, and they just barely pushed it to 50 in overtime. And we had a zones game, I believe, that was so close. Just every single game was so close against them. It was definitely winnable. But we go next, we reflect on our loss, and we go next. We ended up 3-0ing downshift in losers round 1. And we did get knocked in losers round 1, so we had that extra, game that we had to play. So we 3-0 downshift. And the team that we were going to be playing against was going to be the losers of the teams who were playing on stage. And this is where my optimism and determination got hit with reality for the most part. Both teams on stage were very good teams. We had Walnut, and I don't have the other team's name, but they were both very good teams. They had very solid players on both sides. And I knew whatever team we went up against was going to be difficult to get a win off of. It was just going to be hard fought no matter what we had to do. But we ended up going against Walnut. And I believe this team had some pretty high div players on it. They were all very solid players. I met one of them at Gatorland back in February as well. And they were just all very solid players. And this is where, unfortunately, my story ends here, as we ended up going 0-3 against Walnut, getting placed 39th at Riptide 2025. I'm going to be honest, we all played the best we could with the little time we had, as there definitely was factors outside of our control that definitely played into this. I definitely believe if me and everybody else, if we all as a collective had just a month or two to consistently play together, we could have made top 32. I wholeheartedly believe that. We were all good players. We all had what it took. However, unfortunately, we lacked prep time. We lacked trying to get a comp together. Obviously, we switched comps day one of pools because we had to switch things up because what we were doing with that first just wasn't working. So there's that aspect where we didn't have the comp down and we didn't have enough previous playtime with each other to kind of, get a groove going. And obviously at Riptide, unfortunately, unlike with Smash setups and stuff like that, for Splatoon players, we really don't have much to practice with. You're just going to be playing hotel Wi-Fi and opens, or if someone brings a local LAN connector, you're just going to be sitting in a hotel room, yelling across the room with your teammates playing that way. And also everyone's just still super busy as well at Riptide. Cactus was doing commentary stuff as well, and we were just all kind of doing our own thing. So there really wasn't room to practice at Riptide, unlike if you're a Smash player, you can just go sit at a friendlies and warm up that way. Also another factor that we didn't notice, which is on us, it's not on the TOs, but Balloon was on our roster, and Balloon was originally supposed to be on this team. However, Balloon wanted to focus on college and chose not to come to Riptide this year, and Balloon is a very good player. However, because they weren't there, they were still on the team roster. Their seeding got factored into our seeding. Our seed was seed 25 for the tournament, and we definitely got overseeded. And that's just on us. The TOs did make a post like, hey, seeds are out. Let us know. It's the first draft. Let us know, blah, blah, blah. And we just didn't, take notice of that. We were like, oh, seed 25, whatever. But I believe the overseeding and the lack of prep time we had as a team played a huge factor into us not achieving the heights that we could have achieved, unfortunately. However, I'm very proud of how I played. Normally after I play, I just call myself a bad player because sometimes I'm just like, I don't play to my full potential. But this Riptide, I felt like I just played so well, and we all did the best we could, but we just didn't have you know, the timing of everything. And it is what it is. I'm very grateful to have played with everybody. We all played the best we could with what we were given. You know, we got dealt a hand and we, you know, tried our best with it. But, however, 2 out of the 4 teams that I'm covering here out of my friend group, they moved on to top 32. We had a chill night that night, just kind of hung out, did whatever. I had body safe markers and I had Locke draw on me, and it was kind of funny. I had him draw me earlier in the week, but I had body safe markers and we were just kind of chilling out, talking. You know, I took Amber on a date. We went to the mac and cheese shop, and I was just really determined to just come back and play and just get better because I want to make top 32 next year. So I was just determined. I was just, you know, mulling over things, talking about it with some friends, and just like kind of, you know, reflecting on the whole experience. But after reflecting on everything, you know, it was time to go to bed. And, you know, I had a free day Sunday. I didn't have to play. So I got to go to bed and sleep in a little bit and, you know, kind of get ready for my shenanigans the next day. So day 3 rolls around and it is time for the wonderful top 32. However, I have my shenanigans. The first year, I didn't really have too many shenanigans. I just kind of, you know, hung around, did stuff, whatever. I was the only one, like, really cheering for FT Win back in 2023. I was the true rep for FT Win. I was yelling at Kyo to, you know, speak his truth when he was talking to the other team. But moving on to the previous year, I had people sign my foot. If you watch my previous video, I had people sign my foot. Kyo got his whole foot to himself. He had one whole foot. The other foot, the other foot was for the rest of the peasants to sign. But this year, I wanted to take it up a notch. I had people sign my body. So I had people sign my arms, some people sign my legs, and I had a couple feet signatures. But my forehead was reserved for the king himself, Kyo. I had him sign my forehead, and I walked around with Kyo's name written across my forehead. Neppy gave me a little pin with a bow on it, so I looked really cute with that. So my hair was off to the side. I had my cute little mask on, and I walked around asking people to sign my body. I had everybody from FT Win and everybody from Milky Way sign my body. As I walked around, I just had more people sign my body. It was a fun shenanigan having time. And, you know, it was funny. It was, you know, it was cool. I was cheering for FT Win a lot in pools. Jazzacorn made like these little pamphlets, and I was holding up, you know, the FT Win poster that she printed out, and I was cheering for FT Win from round 1 of top 32. I was a real one. I was telling Jazz to cheer too. She's like, when they're on stage, I'm like, I'm cheering right now. I'm yelling, let's go, my goats, right behind them. You know, they're not even on stream, they're not on stage, but I was a real one. I was yelling, and then they were on a side stream, and I was like holding up the FT Win sign, and I'm just like standing there, and I'm like, this is my goats, and it was just a really funny time.
Oh, here's a crossfire,
Yeah.
Oh, would you like some crossfire with that crossfire real quick?
Yeah.
But still, the result doesn't change. FT Win is going to be going 2-0 on this set right now at game point.
But disregarding all my shenanigans and, you know, the fun time it was for cheering for everybody, moving on to day 3, I had 2 groups of friends left. I had Locke's team and Ezio and Soda's team. Locke's team, right off the bat, had to play against Moonlight, and that went as you would expect. They got 0-3'd by Moonlight, getting knocked into loser's bracket. Ezio's team, on the other hand, they went 3-0 against the Greg Grus. However, after their first win, they went up against Lavaca, going down 0-3, getting knocked into losers as well. My friend Locke and his team, they had a valiant fight in losers. However, they ended up being 0-2ers as they went 2-3 against Assault and Pepper, getting knocked out of the tournament right away. And that was their run in their top 32. However, Ezio and Soda's team did not go out like that. They 3-0'd the Yellow Jackets, and they also went and 3-0'd PSU Blue. They were taking out these, very good players, just very good teams of very good players. I remember Ezio said he was like kind of worried about facing off against Yellow Jackets, but 3-0'd them, and they 3-0'd PSU Blue, which I believe PSU Blue won the collegiate there the previous day. However, Moonlight strikes again, knocking out my final group of friends, 0-3ing Ezio and Soda, the deadweights, getting knocked out and placing 9th, I believe. They got 9th or something like that. But Moonlight knocking both of my friends, Lock into losers, and Ezio and Soda out of the tournament completely. So that was it. All of my friends were knocked out. However, this wouldn't be a very good Riptide if I didn't recap the top teams going head to head as my GOATs were up there on the stage. You had the Barnacle Bash multi 6-time in a row champ Gray, along with multi-time winner Jared, and then Doc Q and Bran up there repping. All of them have won Barnacle Bash. I believe Q and Bran have just won it at least once. However, Jared and Gray have won it multiple times. So I had my Barnacle Bash champs up there on the stage, along with another Barnacle Bash champ, Kyo, on FT Win with Sam, Bursty, and Biscuit. So I had people to still cheer for. I still had to give oomph to my vocal cords to cheer for everybody to win it for the big one. So on the winner's semi-final side, you had Milky Way. I would say it in French, Val Lacté. I'll give it to you once. However, on one of my recap videos, I said it French the whole way, and I just can't be bothered. I took French for 2 years in high school. I don't remember anything. I can pronounce Val Lacté as much as I can. I'm just going to say Milky Way just because it's easier for me. No disrespect to anybody on the team or anybody, but I'm just going to say Milky Way. But you had Milky Way versus Hypernova on the winners semifinals on one side. And then on the other side, you had FT Win versus Lavaka. Starting off with Milky Way versus Hypernova, it was zones on Mahi, and this was a fierce battle, as at first they were trading the zone a little bit back and forth, taking points here and there. Hypernova eventually dropped it down to 54 points, but then Milky Way came back and held the zone and kept Hypernova on the plat the entire time until they knocked it out, securing themselves a Game 1 win over Hypernova.
In troubled waters as it stands, with the members still trying to fight their way to the zone. Handlo just went down, and with the force that's left, I don't think there's enough pain or players to sustain that. Vordak, they're taking the first.
For game number 2, it was Rainmaker Manta, and Hypernova grabbed the Rainmaker, and they just kept running with it. The first half of the game, Hypernova had the lead. They had the Rainmaker, they had the control, they had everything, and they brought their points all the way down to 15. But then Milky Way came back and clapped back. They first scored the checkpoint, and then they just instantly pushed and made their way all the way to a victory.
To go on and get the pick there, unable to. Weebon clearing the way. That's going to be a lead swap for Void Latte, and it's a knockout, folks. Wow.
Milky Way just managed to hold on, stopping Hypernova from, taking it. And like I said, they just ran it all the way to the end, securing themselves the game. The comeback was insane. Getting that checkpoint and just running it right to the end was just absolute insanity. Now, game number 3 was Tower on Hagglefish Market. And for the most part, during this entire game, Milky Way just was dominating, keeping Hypernova on the back foot consistently. However, towards the end of the game, Hypernova did manage to start pushing for points and chipping away a checkpoint. However, Milky Way just took it right back and just, secured themselves. They had a dominant lead majority of the game, and they were just able to come back, and they ended up knocking Hypernova into the losers bracket, securing themselves a place in winners finals.
Worth of picks, and unfortunately with only a couple seconds left to go, no one is really on that tower for Hypernova, meaning that is a 3-0 finish for Void Latte.
Moving on to the other side of the winners semi bracket, we had FT Win versus Lavaca. The first game took place on Mahi zones as well, and the first game was almost a complete knockout by FT Win. They brought their points all the way down to 8 within the first minutes. However, Lavaca managed to stop the bleeding and come back, and for the rest of the game they traded the zone back and forth. Lavaca had the zone for the most part, but FT Win came back in the end, wiping them out and securing themselves a game 1 victory.
Should be a flip. There it is. Finds a pick and Rave goes down. That is the game going to FG Win. But Lavaca almost pulled that back.
Game number 2 took place on Manta Maria with Rainmaker as the game mode, and Lavaca just came out swinging, and this game took just barely under a minute, about 59 seconds, and Lavaca just took the Rainmaker and ran it all the way to FT Win's pedestal, scoring them a game 2 victory, tying the score 1-1.
Out those trip strikes and keeping FT Win pushed far enough back. The Whale coming out, helping the Pop get a pick as Goss is painting up for this Rainmaker. Now gonna move over to this left side, finding Bursty, gonna keep them trapped. The Rainmaker gets knocked down.
Moving on to game number 3, it was Tower on Hagglefish Market. And for the first half of the game, the first minute and a half, you had FT Win push all the way to 21 points on the tower. However, Lavaca stopped the bleeding and fired back, inching the tower closer and closer throughout the rest of the game, eventually taking the game into overtime, where they almost won, bringing the tower to 22 points. However, the entire team of FT Win clutched up, took them all off tower, and FT Win took game 3 in a miraculous overtime victory.
Joe has gone down. Biscuit is looking at the tower, and Lavaca could have the chance to take this.
This could be really strong, right? We got the second checkpoint. They're pushing it on top. They're all on top of each other. Try to push it through. More points. One. Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
FT Win stops it in its tracks.
Game number 4 was Clams on Museum, and FT Win managed to score early on, keeping the lead for a majority of the game. However, Lavaca came back and scored, taking the lead from FT Win, and while FT Win was trying to get a push towards the end, Lavaca stopped the FT Win push, securing themselves the game 4 win, pushing it to a game 5.
No, Kyo and Biscuits are still alive,
There's
trying
not
to
time,
find
there's not
something.
time.
1v3, we can't battle back. Claiming time, Sam's back in it, but the timer runs out. We're going to a game 5.
Oh, my God.
Game 5 was on Zone's Humpback, and this game was a nail-biter. FT Win took the lead within the first minute. However, Lavaca fired back, and they started taking the lead and pushing their points down. And throughout the entirety of this game, both teams were trading zone back and forth and even trading lead back and forth. Lavaca had a hefty lead at 19, but FT Win came back, killing 3 of them under the last minute of the game. And about to take lead, they ended up getting lead, and then Lavaca tried to counter push again to try and get zone back for overtime. However, Kyo denied them with a reef slider, securing FT Win a spot in winners finals.
There are dualies at the ready. Asti is standing up.
There are 2 specials here from FT Win. 50 points remaining. They gotta take this zone, and they gotta do it now. They're running out of time. They're trying to go for the
But the reef slider!
Kyo comes in, gets the reef slider off his entire life. It takes home the victory off of 1 special.
Moving on to winners finals, both my go-to teams were up there on the stage. Milky Way versus FT Win, and this was going to be a set for the ages. Game number 1 took place on Mako Mart. The mode was zones, and both of these teams came out swinging. However, FT Win just kept pushing their lead further and further. Milky Way kept trying to take the zone back throughout the game, and they got it a little bit here and there, but FT Win secured the zone for the most part, getting a hefty lead and knocking out Milky Way, taking game 1 of winners finals.
Now Voylocte still holding on here, and we're going to see how long that they can do this, but Sam is coming in. Can Sam get Q? Sam gets Q. One more going for the FT Win gets a spoil there in overtime. FT
Game number 2, Milky Way fired back with the first half of the game. Milky Way pushed their tower all the way to a nice hefty 37 lead. However, they held on for as long as they could, but FT Win fired back in the latter half of the game, getting lead, and both teams were fighting vigorously for the tower to try and get lead. Milky Way needed to get the tower back so they can get their lead, and FT Win was fighting to keep their lead. However, Milky Way was unsuccessful at getting the tower back, and FT Win took game number 2.
Remaining. Only 2 of them are alive. Grays are opting to push forward and take it away from the tower because of the Booyah Bomb. Bertstein is on the tower. It is not going to go into overtime. FT Win.
Milky Way was on the back foot, down 2-0 against FT Win, on risk of being knocked into the losers bracket, so they needed to step up and put FT Win on the back foot, and that is exactly what they did. Their counter pick was Tower Undertow, and they immediately came out swinging, taking a huge lead early on and walling out FT Win for a majority of the game. FT Win was slowly inching the tower back, even into overtime. However, .Q got a very good snipe on the side, Booyah Bomb to secure the tower, and everyone just rushed tower, knocking Q off the tower, and Milky Way secured themselves a Game 3 victory, keeping themselves in winners finals.
It is right now, right in this tower, more even further. 2 members have gone down. Q from the other angle. That's being eliminated 1. Booyah Bomb is there, and then Oliver is gone.
Milky Way still had some ground to make up. Even though they won one game, they were still on risk of being knocked into the losers bracket, and it was FT Win's counter pick, and they picked Rainmaker Manta. Early on, FT Win managed to dunk the Rainmaker and have a lead. However, Milky Way just came back swinging, got a hefty lead, and just walled out FT Win like they did in the previous game, preventing them from getting any more points, and Milky Way taking game number 4.
Who has it? Who has it?
That overtime. We see that Kyo is the one with the Rainmaker here, and they're going to
behind Q.
But there's someone behind them because Q is
they're down.
But then Q gets taken down.
Game number 5 was a nail biter as FT Win counterpick Clams on Museum, and Voilacte Milky Way managed to score first. However, FT Win fired back again, and they just kind of kept trading it here and there, scoring every now and then. FT Win had the lead for a little bit. However, towards the end of the game, Milky Way got a little bit of a lead, and then towards more of the overtime section, Milky Way managed to kill a couple of them and score, securing themselves a spot in grand finals.
Spotted by Bursty there as well. There's going to need to be a movement here for FT Win if they want to do something. And there's a score. They do it. Voilacte able to get it, winning game 5.
The winner's side was all done, and now we move over to the loser's side. In loser's corners, you had Lavaka versus Moonlight, where Lavaka took it over Moonlight 3-1. And on the other side of the loser's quarter bracket was Hypernova versus BET, taking that set 3-1, going over to Hypernova. And we move on to losers semifinals. In losers semis, we had Lavaka versus Hypernova, 2 very high class teams, and whoever won this set was going to face off against FT Win. Was Lavaka going to get their run back, or was Hypernova going to move on, stopping Lavaka from trying to get their run back against FT Win? Game number 1 took place on Zones Mahi, and both of these teams, Lavaka and Hypernova, were just fighting vigorously over the zone. Both teams were inching their points down repeatedly throughout the game. They were just, one team would get the lead, and they were just trading lead back and forth, until finally Lavaka got the lead and held it down. There was a slight overtime. However, Lavaka denied the overtime instantly, winning game number 1.
Zone, hold on, is this too big of a call? No, they didn't get anything to flip. They're in overtime, but there's only Dylan left at this point. Surely one can't fight everybody. A formality at this point. And Lavaka holds true at the end.
Game number 2 took place on Tower Inkblot, and Hypernova fired back against Lavaka, having a very hefty lead and locking out Lavaka for the entire game. Lavaka inching some points here and there. However, Hypernova took game 2, tying the score up 1-1.
Lavaka be able to make a move to the tower. Dylan's already sitting here with that big bubbler on top. It's been shredded, and they're attempting to make a push for it, but it looks like time will expire. Hypernova steals one away.
Game 3 was Clans Umami, and both of these teams were firing clams back and forth. Hypernova scoring first, Lavaka scoring second, and they just kept scoring back and forth. However, Lavaka got the edge, and they were waiting very patiently. Towards the end of the game, they got a huge lead, dropping their points down to 4, and then they waited it out a little bit more and then fired back, closing out the game, leaving the score 2-1 in Lavaka's favor.
Too long to make their push happen, and their moment has been missed. That's 3 down, and that's the knockout.
Game number 4 takes place on Rainmaker Museum, and Hypernova on the back foot here on their tournament life. And this game was incredible as both teams were very patient with their pushes, and Hypernova got lead, and then Lavaka also scored first as well. However, Hypernova got a huge lead, dropping their points all the way down to 20, almost closing out the game before Lavaka stopped them. And then Lavaka, in their very patient fashion, just waiting around, using their time perfectly, they ended up getting a lead towards the end, pushing the game into overtime, and then securing themselves a spot in losers finals.
Already down, you hear the Jaws music, and it comes in the form of a very angry Ultra Stamp from Zenith. Look at this. Could Goss close this out as well? Who else?
Moving on to losers finals, the winner of this gets to go back and fight Milky Way. However, this is one more set both the teams will have to play. You had Lavaka versus my goats on FT Win. The first game took place on Hagglefish Market Zones, and this game was intense. As early on, Lavaka got a huge lead, and FT Win just slowly kept chipping away at the zone over and over again, finally getting lead at the very end, forcing an overtime. However, Lavaka fires back in overtime and secures themselves the Game 1 victory.
The biscuit, or no, that's Bercy on the far left side. I can't even read the screen properly, 9.
There it goes, 2 and 1, and it's Lavaka at the end.
Game number 2, it was FT Win's counter pick on Mahi zones, and both of these teams were trading the zone back and forth a majority of the game. However, Lavaka pulled away in a huge lead, but FT Win fired back, getting their lead and slowly holding on to that zone. Lavaka tried to get the zone back and hold it into overtime. However, FT Win denied their overtime, clutching up the zone before Lavaka could take it all.
Length away, we're going to see overtime here. The Booyah Bomb, the crafting is out, Thunder dives in, Zenith comes in as well for the side angle. Can they hold on to the zone here? It looks like it's 2 down now for Lavaka. They might not be able to, but no one's focusing the zone. FT Win is going to...
FT Win tying up the score 1-1. Game number 3 was Lavaka's counter pick, Clams Museum, and Lavaka must have taken an economics and business class before this because they walled out FT Win non-stop throughout this game, getting their points down to 36, and FT Win did not score once. Lavaka did a great job at keeping clan economy on their side, picking up all the clams. They had 2 power clams at one point to FT Win's basically 0, and it was just an absolute slogfest. FT Win did not get to score, and Lavaka taking game number 3.
Clams at the ready. They have that one power clam that they need, but Bursty gets hammered there by Zenith on the left side of the stage. There goes Kyo. There goes the other. Oh my gosh, just left and right members of FT1. They're trying to jump in, do anything they...
Game number 4 was FT Win's counter pick, Hagglefish Market Tower, and right away, right off the bat, Lavaka got a lead. However, FT Win did manage to fire back, pushing the tower forward, but Lavaka fired back again, pushing their lead even further as FT Win was just not able to really push the tower. And then we get to overtime, and overtime hits and ends immediately as Lavaka gets the win, moving themselves to grand finals. Looking back at the clip, it seems like no one on FT Win was on the tower, so unfortunately they did not get to go to overtime, and Lavaka gets to go up against Milky Way in grand finals.
Be some GG specials. We're gonna start it off with the crab. Just a few more seconds. Rissa, take us through overtime.
Okay, so, oh my gosh!
What?
What?
Grand finals time. Only 2 teams stood above the rest. On one side, you had Milky Way, Voilakti versus Lavaka. And this was a set to behold. You had these 2 teams toughing it out over one of the longest top 32s we've had at Riptide. The previous years, we ended around 5 or 6 o'clock. This year, we went well late into the night, as it was around like 9:30-ish at this point, and both teams have been fighting it out all day. Going on to game 1, Lavaka came out swinging. For the first 2 minutes, they held the zone, pushing their points all the way down to 11, but Milky Way stopped the bleeding and stopped them from taking the game and getting their points on the board. Lavaka did try and fire back at some points, giving Milky Way pity points. However, Milky Way held down the zone, able to take it all, and Milky Way coming back, taking game number 1.
Here from Voilakti, the more they can enable Gray, the better this will be for them.
Voilakti asking, ye shall receive here. Now Brand moving up here. This is the difference in the way that they are playing and attacking. Brand fighting another one, more assistance. Just a few ticks left. Thunder's not going to be able to paint it. And what a way. After the start of that game, we said...
Game number 2 was Lavaka's counter pick on Clams Umami, going back to the same map but different mode. And for the first half of the game, both teams were at a standstill. No team wanted to give the other one an inch. However, around the 2-minute mark, Lavaka finally was able to score and get their points all the way down to about 45-ish and held that lead. Once the game went into overtime, Milky Way managed to score their clams. However, Lavaka denied their overtime push, securing themselves a Game 2 victory.
Breaking through. Here they go. They're firing up over the top. Jared waiting, ducking, dodging. That's 1. Can we get the other 2? That's 2. Can we get the 3rd? No. They're going to go down here. They're jumping in. Gray fighting everybody. It's not going to be enough. We're in overtime, but they're going through. The last power clamp gets swallowed up. No one will be around. And
Game number 3 was Milky Way's counter pick, and they picked Tower Undertow, and they just dominated Lavaka this entire game. They got a nice hefty lead, bringing the tower all the way to the checkpoint and walled out Lavaka, not even letting Lavaka get past the first checkpoint, and Milky Way taking game number 3, setting the score to 2-1.
KD's a little bit there. Please swim onto the tower. No, Goss is going to let this go. How do they not close this out? I mean, this is maybe... okay, we're going to fight it out again. Jumping through here. Takes Zenith out.
Game number 4, Lavaka's tournament life and counter pick, as they needed to win this to stay in the tournament and at least try to win Riptide. They counter pick Rainmaker on Scorch Gorge, and right off the bat, they managed to get the first checkpoint. However, Milky Way fires back, getting their checkpoint, and then pushing their lead all the way to 28. And in typical Rainmaker fashion, it turned into just a basic snooze fest, as both teams were basically at a standstill. No one was giving each other an inch, and Milky Way was able to secure Riptide 2025. My Barnacle Bash goats winning the biggest Splatoon LAN ever.
Last portion of the game right now. Gray grabs the fish. Don't retreat. Heck yeah, we're retreating. This is Rainmaker in 2025.
That's it.
Here we go. 2-1, and your champions of Riptide.
And that was it. That was top 32 of Riptide 2025. Milky Way winning it all and showing that they are the champs, winning Barnacle Bash multiple times, winning tons of tournaments, and showing up winning the biggest LAN that Splatoon has to offer. After they won, I went up to the stage and congratulated them and chatted with them a bit, and I remember telling them that, yeah, this was the longest that Grand Finals and Top 32 has gone, as we typically ended at like 5 or 6 the previous years, and Q looks at their phone and goes, wow, I wasted my whole day playing Splatoon. And there's just something very comical about that one-liner to me. But after all of that, I chatted with my friends, saying goodbye to people that I wouldn't be seeing in the morning and looking out into the entire venue one last time as all the tables were being packed up, people were filing out, and they were getting ready with, you know, the ceremony and everything. And I just ended up walking out after the ceremony, saying goodbye to people, and heading up to my friend's room where we all sat around and chatted for as long as we could. However, all good times do have to end, and as much as you don't want to go to sleep, you just want to stay up with everybody and chat, you have to go to bed and wake up the next morning to get on your flight, go back home, and go back to your Monday life. Saying goodbye to everybody is always the hardest because it's like you don't want to cry because it's, you know, you're going to probably see them again at some point maybe. But Riptide is typically where I see everybody once a year. And it's just always so hard at times. But even though it's very sad at the end, it is still worth it to come to Riptide just to see everybody and have the hype moments, the fun, and the shenanigans. I made my way to the airport with Amber, my lovely Amber, and we sat around and my flight got delayed multiple times. And it was kind of bittersweet because it was like, oh, we're going to say goodbye to each other and it's sad. And then they're like, the plane's delayed. The plane's delayed. And then it got to a point where we're like, okay, like we want to say goodbye. Like, you know, we're like, we didn't cry after we said goodbye the final time. It was just kind of like, you know, we already did that. Like, I just want to get on the plane and leave now. Like, it's just like, it's like kind of like that weird moment where you're just like, all right, this is it. It's not it. It's not it. And then it's just, I just want to go home and see my dog and have the plane chair hurt me. But I flew in Monday night after a couple hours of delay, and I immediately ate food and hopped back on Splatoon because I'm grinding Splatoon for the entirety of next year because I am going to be getting top 32 next year, and it is going to be a win at all costs. I appreciate everyone who's made it this far in the video for watching. I greatly appreciate it. I want to give a huge thanks to Falco and Honan for allowing me to use the footage from the Splatoon tourneys and IPL streams. I want to also give a huge shout out to Chara and Gray for just being very supportive of the work that I'm doing and also the work that me and Slinky are doing with Barnacle Bash. It means a lot, and having that support is just a driving factor and to keep pushing us forward to do bigger and better things. Also, I want to give a huge thanks to all the people who tolerated my shenanigans with me signing my body and looking absolutely ridiculous. It was just a funny time. So thank you to everyone who tolerated my shenanigans. And also a huge thank you to everyone in the community, everyone who showed up at Riptide this year, whether you were a commentator taking time out of your schedule to come commentate, whether you were a player who just tried to push yourself and do your best, or you were just a spectator wanting to watch some Splatoon, have fun and hang out with your friends, and even the artist vendors who were selling all of their art stuff who make amazing art all the time. Go find them on Twitter, go find their shops. They just make incredible stuff to buy every year. So just a huge shout out to everyone in the community. A big thanks for all of you, because without all of you, I would just be crying at my schoolwork right now instead of making this video and being grateful for the experience that I got to have, and other people who are probably grateful for the experience at Riptide this year. Also, thank you for the TOs as well, who had to do a lot this year. This was the biggest Splatoon LAN, and the TOs put in the work this year. But that's going to be it for me. If you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate if you would subscribe. I will see you in the next one. And if you come to Riptide next year, I'll see you next year. Take care. Peace.